Okay, so welcome everyone. It's day 10 of the Northern Real Farming Conference, and it's the evening session. And for any of you who I haven't met, I'm Ellen. I'm the coordinator for the conference. And yeah, I'm really delighted that we're having this screening this evening. And what we're going to do for the session is I'm going to let Dom, Helen and Adam introduce themselves, and then we're going to have the screening of the film, and then there'll be a chance for questions and discussion afterwards. So Dom, can I ask you to introduce yourself first of all?
Yeah, hello. My name's Dom Bush. I'm a documentary filmmaker and photographer based in Kendal in South Lakes. Yeah, I guess I'm doing more work that's kind of got an environmental focus. I've done a lot of work in the mountains with kind of adventurers and climbers and things like that, but my focus really now is environmental, and I'm really excited about farming and agriculture, partly because I grew up in that sort of community. So yeah, I'm kind of focusing on that at the moment.
Great, thank you. And Helen and Adam?
Hi, I'm Helen Rawlinson. I'm one half of, well, 1/3 of the focus of the film. And yeah, we'll be answering questions afterwards.
Brilliant.
And I'm Adam, and I said quite a lot in the film, so I'm going to try not to say too much tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I think we're going to go straight into the screening. It's a great film, so I hope you enjoy it, and and then we'll be back for some questions and discussion afterwards. Hopefully Martin is going to be able to screen the film for us. Martin, I'm not getting any sound.
Is Martin on mute?
Martin?
Because I was muted. Is that it?
Now we can hear you.
We'll get crap on getting tied up, and then we get a cup of tea, eh?
Yeah. I'm nowhere near as hard a man as Dad is,
I've got nowhere near his work ethic when it's as intense as running a dairy, an old-fashioned dairy. It's too much. It's too much for a 72-year-old. I think if he doesn't stop, at some point, some injury will befall him or some illness, which will force him to stop one way or another. People do hang on until they're in their old age because maybe their retirement options aren't that good and they'd actually rather keep on farming and keel over in the yard.
And does that happen?
Yeah, I know of two neighbours of my dad who kept on farming and keeled over in the yard, yeah. Literally.
I knew from when I was a very young age that I wanted to farm. I came here in 1972, 55 upwards years. It is a long time. But you wonder where it's gone, where all that time's gone, looking back. Yeah. You don't get excited about thinking you're going to make money anymore, because I think you realise that by about 12 months after you started farming or something. But nevertheless, you keep trying. Most farmers are younger than me now, and so they aren't quite like me, in as much as I'm one of the last probably of the generation who come and farmed and without another job and without my wife going out to work to a job, and brought my family up and survived off what this farm and subsidy payments has brought in through that door. And I've managed, retiring off the amount of money that you accumulate in stock and machinery certainly isn't enough to buy a house and retire off. I think you should be entitled to something like that.
The hours that people put in are really long. The animals are there all the time and you have to be there all the time, or someone has to be. And so, yeah, I would say that pretty much across the board, people aren't rewarded with an adequate amount of money for the amount of labour that they put in. I think it goes beyond fiscal poverty and into sort of cultural, social poverty to a certain extent. I mean, there's quite a high suicide rate among farmers, and there's probably quite an uncharted mental health problem among farmers because they tend to be from maybe more conservative backgrounds and aren't so keen to talk about problems.
This is where the problems start to come in. Everybody gets old, everybody leaves home, by the youngest one, and suddenly he's on his blinking own, looking round, peeping round, doing all the work that all these other people used to be there to help with. And the money just isn't there to get help from anywhere if there's any help to get. And it's just work. There's no interest if, shall we say, England are playing Brazil in World Cup. There's no interest. Brexit, piss off. Everything in their head is what's around them. The cows, the sheep, the dog, and work. And this has got to be done, and work. And that's an angle that's wrong. There should be some way of stopping that happening.
People are working on your own, like I don't have enough hands.
If Adam wanted to farm, and as you know, he's more wanting to do it organically and do it Adam's way and conservation grazing, what he's trying to achieve now, I think there's a niche there for someone to do it. And he could be the one.
Anybody looking at me and Helen with 20 sheep and a few lambs and a pottering about isn't going to take us seriously. But then, you know, we're not really expecting them to. Like I say, it's the first step. We're experimenting with ourselves apart from anything else. Kind of see whether we make the grade. I'm questioning my own actions all the time, because actually it turns out it's quite difficult to be a sustainable farmer. It's not the easy road.
What happened?
I think I can put my hand on my heart and say that it probably would have went better without you.
We're definitely still learning. We're 1 year on with the sheep. There's so much to know about the land and looking after it and how the sheep will work on it and ultimately be able to produce something that we're proud of.
Did you think you were going to be a farmer?
I wanted to be a farmer when I was 9. Then I wanted to be a florist. So I guess I'm farming flowers.
In my teens, what I wanted to do was read books and play the drums. So no, I didn't see myself being a farmer. I couldn't wait to get away. Life's not linear. A lot of my personal happiness is from working outside. I've always gone back to the farm. It's just always felt like home. I'm trying to get myself into a position where I have a farm, and that's the basis for my life.
What we're doing with the sheep is enhancing, or trying to enhance, the diversity of wildlife If people want wildlife and diverse countryside, then
and supporting nature-friendly farmers,
that's what people need to be doing. You don't really switch off. I wake up at night thinking about what's happening, what we could be doing. It's really, really hard work, but you're just out in it, connected to it. It's really easy to write it off as an idealistic life, but it's hard, but you realise that you're working on something, so it feels worthwhile. Why wouldn't you want to do it?
It bothers me that if you want to produce food to high kind of environmental standards, you have to sell it for a price that reflects its quality, and therefore you're immediately cutting out people that can't afford or don't think that they can afford quality stuff. And I mean, that's institutional. That's an attitude that people have, is that quality stuff's for somebody else. And so, you know, it just, I hate kind of having to put a message behind food, because at the end of the day, food's just food and you should really value it. But I mean, surely we should do that inherently without having to dress it up in nice packaging and say, oh, it's organic and vegan, and visit us at Facebook and Instagram.
Have you something to build with? It's hard work. We've made a living, but it's the way of life that you're brought up into. You don't do it for money, really. So there you go.
Did you ever think Adam would be a farmer?
I didn't really think he was showing all that much interest, even though he was helping me. I never really thought him of being anything more than an academic, I guess. But yet he loved his sport, and he loved hills and everything.
Did you want him to be a farmer?
No. No, I don't think I did.
Come and see me, you're old man. I'm an aging old dog, I'm pushing back the time. So many moons and a sun silhouette. I'll tell you a story about where I'm going next. And I was once a lad, fit as a fiddle too. Now look at me now, I'm a shadow of you. I've made some mistakes, we all make a few. You can learn from mine and I can learn from yours too. To come and see me, wouldn't that be nice? I'll tell you a story all about my life. 'Cause we all get to know time, but time waits for no man. And we all get to know life, but life waits for no one. But we come to know the best we can. come and see me. Happy nice. Tell you a story all about my life.
Down. Down now. Whoop, whoop, up a bit. Right. It's on.
Yeah, so the tree's kind of in the way, but that's Gummer's Howe over there. And my dad grew up this side of Gummer's Howe. And our place, where we are now, is just over the side of this little hill here. This is Barrow, so we're kind of a stone's throw that way, really. It's cool. And actually the other reserve that I'm going to be renting is a piece of land that my granddad rented back in the day. So kind of like, yeah, there's connections there, which, yeah, I've not tried to cultivate them deliberately, but it's great. It's really cool to be taking on a bit of land that my granddad had once, for different reasons, but, you know, hopefully I won't make a mess of it. I've got roots that I can't seem to get away from, even though I've tried. Because the experience of life on a farm is quite intense. You find yourself in some unusual places at unusual times. There's grace in that, even if it's like a horrible wet night and you're trying to lamb sheep. It's really, I don't know, it's another level of living. I've found and made and had the opportunity to make that what I do from my work, so why wouldn't I do that? And this is one way that is fairly true to me, that I can, you know, make a little bit of difference to the state of wildlife, hopefully for the positive.
Oh, you'll not age well, me bonny lad. Blackthorn, blackthorn. Cross your chest, you'll tear a fair old gash. Blackthorn, and a winter's wind will come. If you run yourself around like that, blackthorn, blackthorn. Rusty barb will turn your skin to rags. Blackthorn, and a winter's wind will come.
Thank you, Martin, and welcome back, everyone. So that's such a beautiful film, and I think it captures and illustrates so many of the challenges that we're facing. So while I'll just kind of people a few moments to kind of be with the film and its messages. And then in a moment, Dom, maybe you could, as a director of the film, perhaps you could start the discussion by just giving us a little bit of background about like why the film was made and what the vision for it was.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want me to go now, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, go now.
Yeah, so I'll try not to ramble too much, but I grew up in the North Lakes, so Cumbrian, born and bred. I'm not a farmer, but my mum is. She has lots of animals and a small holding, so I grew up around, you know, loads and loads of animals, basically. So I was really kind of accustomed to that relationship between humans and animals. And I was also, you know, loads of my friends at school were farmers. I kind of worked on farms a little bit. So I was kind of fascinated by farmers when I was growing up, partly because they had motorbikes and tractors and things like that, and I could go and play with my friends and ride their motorbikes and stuff. And then, yeah, I guess I've grown up around those communities and just always been really intrigued and I guess challenged on some level by the closed nature of those communities, and wanted to explore that within a documentary. Wanted to, I guess, gain trust in that community. Wanted to represent them in a fair way, because I felt that farmers got blamed for a lot of things, and actually they were part of a system that was broken, and a lot of them were doing their best. So yeah, I guess I just felt like there was a really important story to be told there, and I knew Adam a little bit, and we'd had a quick chat on the phone about making something. And me and Adam actually made a short film together before this, and then I got this commission through The Guardian, having pitched the idea, and approached Adam and said, do you want to make this film that we talked about? And I met Adam's dad, and I knew that I could potentially bring him in, but I needed to be kind of gentle with that. And then Adam's dad was really open and really welcoming, and we got this amazing kind of relationship between the generations, father and son, and these two models of, very traditional and kind of downtrodden to some extent, and then like a contemporary angle, reimagining what was possible. And yeah, that's how it came about, really. The Guardian were amazing and really supportive for me as a kind of establishing filmmaker, and they just let me do what I wanted to do, and gave me the money to do it and put it out to the world. So yeah, really, really happy.
Great, thank you. And we'll come to some of the questions in the chat in a moment. But Adam and Helen, what was your kind of vision or inclination, I guess, to be part of the film?
I don't think that we really thought it was going to be just about us to begin with. So that was quite a we felt safe signing up to something that wouldn't be just about us. We are both we're both kind of coming from outside farming. Obviously, I grew up on a farm, but being told that farming was a mug's game. And so both me and Helen studied environmental conservation at uni and worked in the conservation world, and then kind of came back into it. And I think that we felt that there were things that could be said about farming and nature and where those two things meet that didn't really seem to be being said at the time. So I think we felt quite strongly that we wanted to talk about farming not all being bad news for the environment on the one hand, and about the environment not being all bad for farming on the other hand, if you get what I mean. It felt like there were very polarized conversations, not conversations, just very polarized, I don't know, polemics really. If you read the farming press, it's full of words like slammed and blasted, and yeah, I don't know, that's aimed at people like Chris Packham and George Monbiot and whatever, and I guess we were coming from somewhere in the middle, so that was our interest in it.
And what's happened since the film was made?
We had a baby.
Yep.
Which kind of turned everything upside down, really. Reordered priorities a little bit. And what else has happened? My dad stopped milking last year. We sold the dairy cows, which was a really sad thing to do because they were very much the heart of the farm, and they were, I mean, that's kind of philosophically, but also it's a bit of a hard decision to make because they represented the major cash flow for the farm as well. But it did just get to the point where health problems, you know, my dad's had health problems of one kind and another, that meant that myself and my sister needed to be there, or were needed to be there, you know, possibly more than we could really sustain. So you know, the dairy is very old fashioned and very labor intensive, and that was really what needed to give in order that we could kind of move on. Even though I think for all of us, you know, that was the sort of linchpin of the farm. And so we're still finding our way out of that, really. Yeah, so that's it. And probably it's worth, as a bit of context, just saying that when Don started filming, that was my mother died in January of 2018, and I think that I can't remember what time of year, it was kind of late spring when Don started filming. So that period was, I guess probably some of that came over in the film, how we were feeling about it all then. And I would say that I'm still feeling a bit kind of hungover from that. I wouldn't say that it was quite a galvanizing thing for me personally, but it's also something that's got quite long-term effects as well. Not all galvanizing.
Yeah, of course.
So is your father retired now?
No. No. So the cows, the dairy cows, were sold last September, but he kept his dairy heifers, bulling heifers, and some of the suckler cross heifers and the sheep as well. So no, it's still very much, he's still very much working, but slowed down.
I thought those comments were really interesting about, you know, we all know that farmers don't like to retire and they want to drop dead in the field, and I've got a father exactly like that. But it was nice also that your dad was honest about the finances of retiring as a farmer are also really difficult.
Yeah, so also worth putting into context, he's a tenant. And so I'm not saying that owner-occupiers don't have problems, but a lot of the money in tenant farming gets swallowed in the rent. So it takes longer, I guess, to build up the funds to be able to then kind of retire, I guess, in a way that works well. I think, I don't want to talk too much. Do you want to say anything about the kind of the commission, Dom, about the?
Yeah, well, other interesting context, I guess, is that the Guardian was a media sponsor, so they agreed to basically platform the film, whereas the people who actually put the money in were the James Rowntree Foundation, which is so James Rowntree, who makes sweets, made sweets. He doesn't make them anymore. There's a charity. The foundation works with people in poverty. So there was, you know, within the originally the commission was to reframe the debate around poverty in the UK. So that was my only brief, really, and I came and said, right, okay, I want to talk about farming. And I didn't go, Raymond's in poverty, I'm going to go and pitch this idea. It was, you know, he obviously is on a very low income, and a lot of farmers are. But I did, when I was approaching it and talking to Raymond, I did want to talk about the finances a little bit. I wanted to be open and upfront and be really clear that the value that we put on this work and the products that come out of it is too low. So yeah, he probably got questioned by me about finances a few times, so he couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, and so I was wondering if we could go, Joanne, would you like to unmute yourself? So Joanne was asking about, Joanne, would you like to ask your own questions? Joanne, do you want to unmute? Okay, well, Joanne's was asking about the relationship, the kind of father and son relationship, and you know, whether there were any kind of clashes or differences of opinion on ideas, Adam.
Yeah. But I don't think that's unusual. I guess what happened to me was that I left the farming community and went and studied the environment and came back to farming. I came back to the farm after uni. Actually, I worked at the farm for a year before. I did a couple of years working for Natural England, and I suppose what happens when you come back to a community like that from universities, lots of people are keen to tell you that they've been to the University of Life. You know, you kind of come back with a head full of ideas, and the reality on the ground's a little bit different to maybe the theory that you learn. So coming to terms with that, you know, you can imagine sort of post-pubescent but not very grown up, trying to kind of understand how it all fits together. So yeah, there's some clashes of ideas, but my dad's always recognised, I guess from a purely financial point of view, that marginal farms like his absolutely since the beginning of the 90s have relied upon direct payments for environmental outcomes. And so he's kind of less anti-nature or anti-naturalist than some other members of the community, I guess, are, who one way or another are less engaged, whether because they're able to get by without those environmental payments, or for whatever reason. But yeah, we've had some clashes, but I guess we're kind of broadly on the same page.
And I noticed in the film that both you and he said that you didn't at one point, you know, want to go into farming, like, and then you were also talking about kind of almost being drawn back. Like, can you say anything about that kind of journey?
Yeah, I probably won't expand on it that much more. But farming was bad in the 90s when I was growing up, and so it wasn't really seen as a career by any means. And I was always good at school, so if you're good at school, people encourage you to be doing more school, really, don't they? That's something that I think needs addressing, is a little bit of kind of professional respect for manual labour and things that aren't. I'm losing my track a little bit here, but I feel quite strongly that, I mean, I might be an academic and I was good at school, but there were lots of people that that school didn't serve very well. Yeah, I feel it's quite a strange thing in society that we don't seem to accord as much respect to people like mechanics as we do people with more kind of cerebral occupations. So anyway, that's a load of guff. I grew my hair. I wanted to play the drums and be a rock star, and my parents didn't exactly support that, but the easiest way to be a rock star seemed to be to go to uni. So went to uni, studied English literature, hated it, changed to environmental conservation because all my friends were doing that and they were talking about mycorrhizae, interesting stuff that sounded much more interesting than Mansfield Park. Worked in conservation, but discovered that actually, the work in conservation, I think, for Natural England certainly, who are the statutory body for nature in this country, England, there's a lot of really good people there, a lot of really good ecologists who seem to have been increasingly strapped to the desk. And I was fortunate enough to get quite a lot of time out with people, kind of learning what's around us, learning the habitats and species. But the job that I was there to do was basically computer processing, and I hated it. I was rubbish at it. I wasn't feeling motivated to do it. I had a couple of sort of unfavourable performance reviews because I was taking every opportunity to go and do something more interesting, and there were people there that would offer me a day out walking over a bog and monitoring it or whatever, so I was much more interested in that. But I could see that I could see two things really. Was that I was too green and wet behind the ears, because that work for Natural England was all around agri-environment schemes, and I couldn't see a future for myself at that point doing that because I was too kind of young and inexperienced to really talk to people about their farm businesses and how they might change them, because I didn't know how their farm businesses worked really. And I mean, I went to Dorset and I did 6 months working in a market garden, and worked with some cows on that farm, and remembered that actually I really like working with cattle. And so that kind of brought me back, and I already knew that this chap Bill Grayson was the guy that was doing a lot of conservation grazing in the Lake Districts, in the South Lakes around Morecambe Bay. Providing grazing to sites that needed it, basically for kind of dynamic processes on those sites. So eventually I found my way to Bill and working for him, and that's kind of how I ended up basically back farming again. So that was really waffly, I'm sorry. I can't even remember what the original question was, but
no, that was about being kind of drawn back into it, as it were. And Helen, what about?
Yeah, I mean, it's magic.
So I think so. I've worked for various conservation charities and also worked for Natural England, giving agri-environment scheme advice and protected site advice. But just as both having conversations around a farm table about, well, where does your food come from, and really interested in that really, food and provenance, but also increasingly, if you want to get anything done in terms of biodiversity improvement, then you've got to be farming the land, really. So yeah, met Adam and conversations, and then stuff kind of fell into place to take on some grazing and river slack. So we thought we'd give it a go.
Great. And Anna, do you want to unmute and share your thoughts and comments?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this came up in the Japanese hill farmer session the other day. Like, there's a huge labour gap, and like someone working 80 hours a week. I mean, maybe we can say that that's good and fine, or maybe we can say that that's not going to ever attract people into a farming career. So I guess it's a big question, and one that, I mean, we could spend a full week exploring it. But how do we fill this labour gap? How do we make farming attractive to young people, and how do we catch young people from an early age to encourage them to get into farming? Yeah, I know it's a big question. I know no one, it's not directed just to Adam and Helen, it's for everyone. But I mean, we've by chance got some teenagers at Clover Hill who were told not to go into farming, and they've come up to practice just growing veg. But it's like by chance that they find us. Like, how can we actually actively get more people wanting to work on land, and how can we support that? What's needed?
I'll say a little bit. In my, you know, I do not have the experience in agriculture that these guys do. Having made a film about farming and now being really engaged with that kind of media going out, I'm watching other production companies making little films about farming. I'm watching the Land Workers Alliance, Land in Our Names, these different organizations doing really important work. And there is a cool element to it. I know it's like, I don't mean to belittle it at all, but like, there's people getting engaged. I think there's young people getting engaged, and I've met, you know, at least 3-4 couples just in this area. Like there's some guys over the hill in the Lythe Valley. There's some guys in Ullswater. You know, they're of age, Adam and Helen's age, who are setting up like mob grazing businesses or conservation grazing because there is a shift going on, which is being communicated. This is my perception, is being communicated through social media and through you know, modern media. I'm not saying that fills the labour gap or like makes the problems go away, but I do think there's an understanding of the importance of it that appears to be showing itself a little bit more. Like I'm working on another project at the moment. I'm kind of half answering a question over here from Olwyn. I'm working on another project for the Guardian about small scale farming, and I've followed three different farmers. It's not out yet, but it's a bit of a collaboration between me and a journalist. So it's going to be stills and writing and some drone shots and some short documentaries. So one of them is with Humphrey. One of the short documentaries is with Humphrey, who's a market gardener in Bristol, basically, and he's part of the Land Workers Alliance. And he's really environmentally focused and really eloquent and articulate, and can, I think, kind of galvanize people. And then John and Maria, who are over near Ulverston, and then a young farmer called Mary Ankers in Cheshire, who's a dairy farmer. So with that project, we're covering dairy, meat, and wool and veg. I was trying to kind of cover all of those bases and make the argument for small scale. So, you know, farms, not factories. And like, you know, the Guardian, in their environmental work, in their environmental pledge, I've seen them kind of getting behind this kind of media, although they've not been great in the past. And, you know, and I watched a film called Kiss the Ground last night, which really, in a really accessible way, opens up this concept of agroecology and caring for the soil as a possible solution to climate change. And the one thing that young people are looking for is a possible solution to climate change, because they're all shitting themselves. And I think if you can harness that, you can harness modern media and not close ranks and not close the doors from the outside world, which a lot of farmers have done for a lot of years, then I genuinely do think that it can become something different, something progressive, and, you know, that can change the world. God, that sounded really trite, but, you know, I genuinely do. I'm really excited about it.
Did you want to respond, Anna? Or?
I've spent lots of time visiting different regenerative farms, and the thing that causes me a lot of worry, I guess, is that young people get attracted to it, and it's almost romanticized. And then I see them, people trying out working on farms, and then they end up wanting me to be consultants advising other people to set up farms, or academics studying sustainable farms. But at the end of the day, farming is revolutionary, but it's hard work, and it can be socially isolating at the moment, the way that where you access land to grow. So it's really unromantic as well. It's hard and tough, and I think there's something that's missing between that romantic vision of what farming can be and the reality of it. It feels like there's a few infrastructure, I don't know, support networks, infrastructure, something's missing that will hold people.
I think what came out of the Japanese discussion last night about kind of not collective but working together to market, something that we're struggling with at the moment. It's just realising a bit of reality check. We wanted to sell everything direct, you know, so we knew where it was going and we could deliver it to the customers. And we work and have a toddler and you know, like, it's another skill that neither of us really got into farming to do. So just coming out of that, you know, we do know other people in similar situations if we work together to do that, or engaging kind of other people in it. I think it's that kind of labour thing, or just working together more. Then you were talking about family farms as well.
Yeah, so I mean, this kind of term, family farms, right? If you go back to my granddad's generation, he grew up on a farm in Greenodd, and there were quite a few of them. You know, there were a lot of kids about, and I think everybody worked one way or another, more or less all the time. And I think that generation, a lot of the kind of leisure activities were also quite absolutely rooted in the work of the farm, and a lot of the pleasure that they took in life was kind of in the pride that they took in their stock and whatever. And I guess we're coming down now to where you can't kind of put your kids to work in the same way. But I was brought up very much working on the farm a lot of my free time, and I think for me that means that in my adult life I'm prepared to spend a lot of my free time working. And I think that if you haven't been brought up with that, that's quite a difficult thing to adjust to. I think it's difficult for all self-employed people, really. If you're self-employed, then you really need to put in the extra miles. But I guess the difference is that you're dealing with living things, and they never go away, or they do get out at really awkward times. And you kind of, yeah, there's no doubt about it, it's hard. I don't know how you fill the labour gap. I think you're right, Anna, that people's vision of it is a little rosier than the reality. But I think that you have to kind of learn to love. You have to have the experience, I guess, of those moments of just pure joy that do come out in among all the rubbish. And I think someone mentioned in the chat that there's negative perceptions around farmers at the moment, and I do think that that's really affecting how farmers feel about their work. I think that some of that kind of language that I was saying was coming out in the farming media is rooted in that sense of being quite embattled. And so I agree with what Dom was saying about people kind of harnessing social media and whatever to show what goes on, hopefully in a bit of a warts and all kind of a way, and to show that there is a human side to it. I think because industrial farming has got to the stage that it's got to, in this country as well as in other places, we've got pretty high standards, but there's still a lot that goes on that is a bit dubious. It's quite easy for people to believe that that's across the board, and that's just how farming is. Obviously it's more nuanced than that, and there's lots of different ways of doing things. So I think that the people that are really out there on social media are doing quite good work, showing that there is more to it. But unfortunately, they're individuals or individual businesses, and I do think that my feeling about the Northwest actually is that I don't feel there's been a critical mass exactly of farmers that are kind of agreed on agroecological stuff, if you like, in the same way that there is in the Southwest, where there's a lot of growers, veg growers. Just from being in the Southwest and being in that sort of community that brought about the Land Workers Alliance, it was great to be around so many people that were actually excited about farming. There's loads of young people that are in farming and growing down there, and they're all dead cool and dead nice. Well, and then you come back to the Northwest and there's a lot of embattled, generally older people who are quite resistant to change, because change is often in their world for the worse. So, I mean, actually, it's probably a bit silly to say it, but just stuff like this where you get to put your head up and look around and see that there are other people and young people who are actually engaged is a really good thing. It's a shame that we're all on our computers and not in a room together, because it doesn't suit me that well, but it's this kind of community building, I think, is really important for us all to remember. I've been going to the Oxford Real Farming Conference in January, and Helen has as well, and we've been coming away totally buzzing because everyone's there and you meet so many interesting people. But it took going to Oxford to meet Sam Beaumont and Nick Renison, who are farmers in Cumbria that are interested in this stuff. You know, I met them in a talk about silvopasture, just because I said I was from Cumbria. But I feel like if it hadn't been for that conference, I might not have met them. So it's really great that this is happening for the same reason.
Yeah, great. And that, yeah, I think that was one of the gaps that we hoped that the conference would start to fill. Hannah Field, you've made some comments as well about access, like land prices. Do you want to say something about your comments?
Maybe. there's a lot to say. I think so. I don't come from a farming family, or I would love to farm, but I don't have access to land. And up here, so I'm just near Cockermouth, and it just feels really inaccessible because of the price of land, the lack of access to small parcels of land as well. So I know a few people that are growing organically. One guy managed to get a bit of land just off the A595, and he's Green Man Market Garden. And there's a few bits and pieces going around, but yeah, I guess getting people together would be really exciting and interesting, sort of our generation maybe, in looking at these things. I've ended up, so I was in conservation as well, and I'm doing my PhD looking at common land, and I'm also working for Food Farming and Countryside Commission, and we are looking at questions like the gap of labour and how we solve that. So I'm looking at building a network around that, and I'm in a conversation on Friday with Stan Beaumont and Annie Teasdale and the Pasture Fed Livestock Association around building up more of an uplands group for Cumbria. So yeah, I mean, through my work, I'd love to be bringing people together and looking at, I'm looking at some of these really challenging questions with people. I guess my job is to bring people together. So yeah, I mean, I'd be really up for like chatting to anyone that's interested, but yeah, I don't know really, there's a lot, but yeah, thanks for sharing your story. It's been great kind of listening to you talking about it.
I was when we were answering the question before about the labour gap, it was land reform really that came into my mind, having grown up in Cumbria, and you know, being somebody who has been marginalised by the kind of the marketing juggernaut that is the Lake District and the World Heritage Site. You know, you can't afford housing, you definitely can't afford land. You know, I would love land, but it's just like, how on earth could I possibly get to that point? My mum's got a couple of fields up north, but then I met Humphrey down in Bristol, and he's on a piece of council land, and he's farming on 3 acres and growing veg. And I appreciate that this is a very specific type of farming, and I'm not like saying that this is possible for everything, but he's growing on 3 acres, and he's got somebody employed, and he doesn't have any subsidies whatsoever. And it just seems mad that people can make a really good living on a tiny bit of land that they've been kind of gifted by the council. But then you come to where I grew up, and there's vast tracts of land owned by the same people, and they're making pennies from it. You know, it's like, something's got to change there. Like, you know, I know it's a bit pie in the sky and I don't have any solutions, but like land reform seems to me to be such a massive issue.
Claire, you made some comments about the session that you went to earlier today. Do you want to add some comments about land reform?
I'm muting myself. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it was inspiring, and when the reports come up after the conference, it will be well worth dipping into their work, or the work of the Scottish Land Reform Commission. One of the most interesting things I learned about was they've set up a service to match farmers and landowners with land to spare, or needing help, or wanting to pass it on to somebody if they're needing to retire, with people searching for land on the landowners' side, they can only include Scottish landowners in the system, but they're entirely open to people from south of the border who are looking for land. Okay. That made me want to jump up and down and shout with. I was thinking of the future Farm Start people, Ellen, that we can pass that information on to. So I should be going back and looking through in detail at what's going on. I also wanted to say to Adam, particularly, I totally related to what you were describing of your early working experience in conservation, because I too started my working life as a professional ecologist in Cumbria, working for what was then called the Nature Conservancy Council. And after a number of interactions with rough Cumbrian farmers, I went away with a lot of questions, thinking, you know, I'm much too young to be, at that stage was in my early 20s, you know, who am I to be telling these old guys what they should be doing with that corner of their field that happens to be a site of special scientific interest. And I ended up going back to work at the university.
Great. So I guess staying with the theme of, you know, it being an attractive role, lifestyle, career, job. Alejandro, you were asking about the kind of the attractiveness and the income. Would you like to make your point?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the movie was amazing, okay? Yeah, it's because I just don't understand. I just don't understand. We are talking about low income, and we are talking about there is a gap in the workforce. I have to say my background is not social science. That's why I don't understand, because my logic is the following. I'm saying if more people is working there, the share will be less share for the ones that are already working. You understand my point? So I don't know if that is the issue that you want to address, or but it's just I don't understand why you are bringing people to agriculture if it's already difficult for the people who is already there. Okay, it's just that. Thank you.
Who wants to respond to that, or anyone else from the audience, I guess, from the participants? So I guess it's the challenge, isn't it, of yeah, the different farming models, and you know, we're talking about some examples of kind of small market gardens being profitable and the large scale hill farms, and how you kind of get that balance right between, you know, labor and income. Go on, Adam.
So it depends on the value of what you produce. My guess is that the small scale market gardens, out of necessity, producing salad, microgreens maybe, because on a small area they have a high unit price. So you wouldn't grow potatoes on 3 acres because potatoes aren't valued in the market. And I think similarly, this year is possibly going to be a better year, but the price of lamb in real terms hasn't, what am I trying to say here? The price of lamb, you receive the same amount of pounds for a lamb now that you did 20 years ago, let's say, despite the fact that the cost of the inputs has gone up, and the value of the pound changes, obviously. So that I think, to answer Alejandro's question, the product at the far end needs to be more expensive. The food needs to be valued better in order to provide those extra incomes. And the people that are doing that successfully now are people that are processing their own products, whether that's meat or cheese or whatever. Both of us also spent a couple of weeks on a micro dairy in Oxfordshire who bottle and deliver all of their own milk, and they have 15 cows, and their turnover was pretty good, and they paid 2.5 full-time equivalents from 15 cows on about 40 acres, because they were processing it all and they were delivering it. So they were getting kind of the whole of the share of that price. That was all coming back to them. Obviously, the cost of production came to them as well. But whereas my dad's system is to sell to, or was to sell to, a company that bought that milk for, I guess, about 27p when he finished a litre. Whereas this guy in Oxfordshire was able to sell his milk for 1.10 a litre. And so although you spend some money processing it, you generate enough income from selling it for that much more. But I guess that kind of provided jobs. You know, he was able to take 15 cows and turn it into 2.5 incomes. But that's quite a skilled thing. All of that marketing, processing. So it's a good question, Alejandro. I guess we can't really get more people in to do the work, because all of those people that are missing are people that weren't paid that much in the first place. Something that I wanted to point out tonight actually is that you get a very brief glimpse of my sister in the film, in that lovely kind of montage, is that the right word? Towards the end, with nice music. So my sister puts in quite a lot of time at the farm for the love of it, really. Dad helps her a little bit, but it's not like a wage. And that's pretty standard, I think, is that families all pitch in one way or another. But she couldn't do that without, you know, she's got a part-time job and she receives some child benefit. So really, she's being propped up elsewhere in order to be able to do this work that doesn't get paid. So yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because actually lots of people out there that aren't being recognised and aren't being paid for the work that they're doing. So I'm not sure I've got more to say, but it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, okay, I just want to say, I think you gave me an answer, okay, because there was Dr. Rod Everett also mentioned the importance about producing high quality food, and you told me now that the price has to increase, you know, so probably these very intensive farming systems are not okay and are like destroying our society. Okay, so that is what I've been gathering from the information. Thank you.
Right,
I think also you know, breakdown of communities is a really big thing to talk about, particularly in places like the Lake District. You know, rural communities where there would have been numerous people around all getting involved, and lots of things would have been done, you know, without pay, because it was just life, I guess. And those communities have broken up and broken up and broken up. And, you know, particularly in the Lake District, you know, there's kind of, yeah, there's whole villages that are full of holiday lets and things. So you can see how the work gets more isolating and intense and hard work, and I guess, yeah, I guess I don't know what the answer to that is, but some focus on the importance of community and connection to the landscape, and I guess that's why I'm really focused on in making films, are those things. Really, it's like we're losing so much when communities break down and our connection breaks down. Going off on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah. I'd like to come to Adrian. He's had his hand up for a while. Adrian, would you like to comment?
Yeah, well, I've just put a little comment on the chat. I really love the film, and really reminded me of my upbringing on a small family farm in North Lancashire. Sadly for me, probably about 30 years before you, Adam. So my career is about gone now. It sounds really exciting. You're working with Bill, who I know very well, on those habitats you showed. My point really is about, I think the film really reflects to me about, are we thinking of this traditional farming being a lifestyle that's going to disappear in the agricultural transition? And I'm really passionate. I've been in farming, and I work for the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority as head of land management, and I've been helping and advising farmers for a lot of years on conservation aspects and schemes. And I think in the brave new world of elm and the things that go alongside it, looking at food production, getting more money for food, we need to reward farmers. Just going back on a point that Joanna made before about Dales National Park putting out a survey recently, that was about planning policy, and really, I'm sorry if she felt quite negative about that, but actually what it was trying to do was to show the polarised aspects about what do we want from farming in the future. Farming is so important actually to the management of national parks and these special places, managing hay meadows, calcareous grasslands, all the special features that the public love who come to them, that we need to create that future for farming. And I think that is something that should lead us all beyond. We haven't got all the answers yet, and that's we're going to be in a difficult phase for this agricultural transition for quite some time. But I think the film was really good in almost showing the old way of doing it, and almost, in your respect, a potential new way of doing it. But I've still got a passion for, is there a way to retain the people like your dad and those communities in that? Because I think that's really important in the wider discussion that we all need to have about the future.
Something that came out in the talk about the Japanese uplands last night was, I think it was Prof. Lois Mansfield who gave the talk, mentioned the Ullswater Catchment CIC, who are, they're a community group. They're led by a local guy who was galvanised by Storm Desmond to start working with local landowners to deal with some of the flooding issues in those upland catchments around Ullswater. And it kind of came out in that talk about the Japanese uplands that there were initiatives there that were happening that were very much rooted in that community. And Lois had kind of identified that you need leaders within a community to be kind of ushering change in a way that people understand. That I think sometimes when those communities are feeling embattled, new ideas seem threatening because they're being offered by other people, people that maybe they don't understand and they feel they don't understand them. And I think that the Ullswater Catchment CIC is a really, really positive example of a community working on something that maybe 10 years ago you could never have imagined that they would actually have done that, because they're doing quite contentious things like re-wiggling becks and whatever. And I'm a massive James Rebanks fanboy. He seems to be at the moment saying all the right things with regards to how farmers in marginal places might be able to continue to farm in a traditional manner, maybe go back a little bit to some of the stuff that their parents and grandparents were doing, but embrace the environmental outcomes that people want to see, and produce food as well. And I think it's a tricky thing to do, to be able to kind of continue tradition and embrace change, but it's probably pretty essential, because otherwise, farmers are disappearing one by one, aren't they? The figures for dairy farmers, the number of holdings halved, I think, between 1994 and 2014, as those farms got bigger and people got out because the milk price was crap in the 90s. And it doesn't have to be like that, but it takes, it does to a certain extent take special people who speak the language and can kind of represent a local community. And not everyone will want to go along with them. I've heard other herd breeders say that James Rebanks is full of hot air, but I personally think he's just read English Pastoral. It's a very good manifesto. So that's my advice. And it sort of, he's saying the things that I want to say, but can't quite stop waffling for long enough to say. So there you go.
I think we've all, like, everybody's seen the after effects of communities and a loss of identity, you know, like with fishermen, for instance, down the coast of England. You know, you take away somebody's identity and something that they've believed in for their whole lives, even before they can remember, and you leave a huge void. And I guess one of the reasons that I really wanted Raymond to be in the film was because I wanted to honour that identity of the older traditional farmer, and I wanted to show some humanity and vulnerability, because I think, you know, I've read Feral and I'm reading James Rebanks' book at the moment. You know, as much as a lot of Monbiot's ideas I think are really interesting and it changed my view of where I live, without a doubt, there's a lack of humanity in a lot of it, and there's collateral damage that comes out of saying somebody's identity, you know, or, you know, what somebody does is wrong, and you know, at a kind of identity level, there's a lot of fallout from that. So for me, I guess making that film, it's like, I do think things are shifting and things need to change, but we also need to be understanding and have empathy for people who have been trying to do their best. And one of the amazing things about James Rebanks' book, and I didn't expect this, but like within the first chapter, he basically said, this is my identity, this is what I believed in for the whole of my life, and we have fucked it up a little bit, and we need to make it different. And that, like, that level of vulnerability, and somebody being within the farming community saying that is like, oh wow, okay, that's quite a powerful thing, much more powerful than somebody who's come from outside, I think.
It's and something that Anna brought up in that, and I'm going to keep talking about the Japanese uplands because it was dead interesting. Anna kind of said that there's lots of people in Lancaster who are interested in the provenance of food and interested in getting food locally, but maybe don't know how to connect to people out here. And I would say that for us, maybe our perspective is that all the people interested in food in Lancaster might be vegans and haters. And so kind of there's a bit of work to do, I guess, to bring those two worlds together a little bit more. I don't know quite what my point was there. I had a brilliant thing to say and I've lost it now. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think there's a lot of us that are interested in the same things, but coming at it from very different experiences. And it's nice to talk in a way that doesn't polarize things, which is, that middle ground is what I feel like. What? Oh yeah, I mean, so Helen just said, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned veganism by name, because I respect that choice. If people want to make that choice, there's a lot of good reasons to think that way. But you saw me now. Sorry. What was I trying to say? Yeah. We need to get away from that polarity. I need to stop thinking that, and lots of the other farmers here need to stop thinking that everyone's their enemy. And equally, I guess, that's the downside of social media, isn't it? That it's very easy to pick something up and run with it. It's very easy to like something. It's very easy to share something without kind of like critically appraising it. I do it. What are you saying? So it can be a force for good or bad, and like ideas need talking about in more depth than often we talk about them. I want to shut up now because Helen's prodding me.
I was really surprised when I made that film to actually, like, in the last year, I've had farmers come to me and say, "I'd really like to work with you." Which,
okay.
Oh, okay. Which, like, I really do think that, like, just presenting some humanity within it and not polarized views of environmentalism versus farming, like, can bridge those communities and open up dialogue in a really positive way.
I was scared when the film was released. I thought that we were going to get lots of hate mail from both directions, because I thought that farmers weren't going to like it because I talk too much about the environment, and I thought that people that care about the environment weren't going to like it because I talk too much about farming. And actually, what came back was overwhelmingly positive, really, from, you know, like the relatively intensive dairy farmers up the road from us. They said, yeah, that was a good film, and they liked it and they kind of understood it. So yeah, yeah. I'm gonna shut up again. I'm just talking rubbish now.
No, it's so we've got 2 minutes left, so it feels like a good place to maybe draw this to a close in terms of sort of valuing the conversation and, you know, being able to have open conversations with people, hearing everyone's views, and also the importance of community building and connections, both in terms of, you know, support and community for everyone that's, you know, working towards a common goal, but also in terms of, you know, the connections between people producing food and people wanting to buy food. So I think on that note, I might just ask Helen and Adam if you have any final comments or anything you'd like to say in terms of, I don't know, what's next? Do you have something to inspire us to leave us with?
That's putting the pressure on Ellen.
It's good to talk. That's the main thing. It's nice to know there's people out there. Yeah, and food and nature are both important. So yeah, let's try and do the best of both of them. There you go. Motivational speaking.
Perfect ending. And thank you so much to all of you, but to you, Helen and Adam in particular, for being so open and sharing both in the film and opening up this conversation and in the session tonight. Thank you, Dom, as well, for all of your perspectives and creation of the film. And thank you to everyone for your comments and thoughtful input. So I'm guessing that you're welcome to stay in this space. I'm going to formally close the session. You're welcome to stay in this space and chat if you'd like to. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.